You just be you, I'll be me, and we'll be fine. And good evening, and welcome to another edition of Life is People. Tonight's guest is, well, I came across your music, Kate, just generally, which is one of my joys of life. I love just doing general exploring and coming across new music. And I came across, well, The Wolf, really. That was my first sort of introduction to you. And as you know, it kind of inspired a bit of a painting session with me and stuff. So, well, without any further ado, and I'll hand this across to you. But I'll give you just a general couple for people listening. I mean, you're obviously based in Scotland, as we were just saying beforehand, and I think the first place I really want to sort of start with before we could, sort of go over your sort of history is, and you can read this in your bio, because your connection with CalMac New Music. Now, I mentioned that because that's very, when I first read that CalMac are a ferry company, so I was like very surprised they had anything to do with music. So, so really kind of like, before we go any further, obviously, how are you? And maybe tell us about how you came into the CalMac, how you came across that, and what your sort of because that's kind of quite a major sort of part of your story, really, isn't it? The CalMac Music Festival.
I can't actually take credit, because it was somebody I was working with at the time who said you should apply for this. So and then I looked it up. I think it's a bit different now. I didn't see it this year, but yeah, I think it was not last year but the year before, and or maybe it was last year. It was 2016, and you just had to submit a song, and I actually submitted a song called No Heroes. It was a video, and then they kind of take them all and judge them. And then what they did, I don't think they did it this way recently, is that they put on a big show at King Tut's in front of judges, and then we all had to go and like sing the songs. Well, we got 3 songs, and they basically divvied up festival slots. So, and I ended up with Youth Fest. It was actually hilarious, because I looked forward to it for ages. I never enter competitions because I never know, I'm not someone who finds them online ever. So I entered, and when they called me up to say, congratulations, I was like, yes, I got my phone. I was like, I don't want people young. I'm not trying to hang up, and she was like, no, it's CalMac. And I was like, I wasn't in an accident, like I was just trying to shut them down. And she was like, no, you've won. I was like, I'm not entering anything. And she went, no, you've won the CalMac competition. Not won. She was like, you've won a place. And so I was like, oh, okay. And I felt really rude. And I was like, oh my God, I'm really sorry. Please don't kick me out. Like, I'll still come. And so that was it. So I nearly actually hung up on them to tell them I wasn't going to do it. But I went along, and just by chance had an absolutely horrendous ear infection. And so I vividly remember the whole experience of singing, because I just couldn't really hear. It was all being filmed, and I was like, well, I'm clearly not going to get a place. But I did. I did get a place for Youth Fest, which was really fun, and I highly recommend that festival.
Well, before we go any further, you just pointed out that you do that experience, and it's not bad enough. I mean, for me, to get up on the stage is the most terrifying thing in the world. So I'm sitting here trying to put myself into that situation, and then you say, oh, I had an ear infection, I couldn't hear anything. Now, I don't want to pass that over. Talk me through that experience. I mean, if you can't hear anything on stage and you're singing, how did you? I mean, paint me a picture of that moment. I mean,
it was awful. I mean, like that whole, because I'd been having recurring, I had upper respiratory infections since the September before. So that had actually been my last one, and incidentally ended up being my final round of antibiotics, and then into the summer it did start to clear up. So it'd been really persistent, and I actually have still got some loss of hearing in my right ear, but hopefully we're going to sort it out, hopefully early next year, and do it. But you know what it does? It like really puts you in that spot, like where if it was any other gig, you just wouldn't do it. You would just say health first, there's no need. But when you're given these opportunities, it does come down to that point of going, well, you have to at least try. And even if you did sound awful, or it was not something that was a good experience, I still think that you would benefit from actually applying yourself in that way. you know, just to overcome potentially an unnecessary fear. And for me, it was actually, because I could hear on my left side, and everyone was just so nice. And and I was able to, so instead of singing the song that I'd actually entered on, I didn't play the guitar or anything. I just, my partner was playing piano, so that was fine. I was able to really tone everything down, because I have a lot of melodic songs, as you know, like Wolf, and we didn't sing Wolf. But yeah, we just kind of brought down the kind of tone of the songs. And I don't know how you get through adrenaline. Adrenaline, and just like, I can do this. I think you have to really, it's a mental sort of, it's like a psychological, you have to tell yourself you can, and, you know, sort of visualize yourself on the stage. I'm doing it a little bit for next weekend, because I remember when we were chatting about doing this, I was like, I'm probably not going to be doing any gigs this year, and I'm now doing it. My only gig that I've got happens to be at the Queen's Hall next weekend with Horse, which is a really big gig, and I'm doing it solo. And because I've had all this time off, I'm having to do this again. I'm like, right, you need to really prepare yourself psychologically. It's not just like any other gig, you know, you have to sort of dig deep, and it sounds really airy-fairy, but you have to sort of, and also like, you just rely on everything that you've ever learned in terms of technique, breathing, keeping your nerves. You don't want to get rid of your nerves, but you want to kind of manage them. And for me, one of the tricks is to get on stage and somehow pull in the audience, like just something. You don't have to say much, but you have to feel it, so that it becomes relational, you know, like between. So it's not about necessarily the space or the room or the event, like a competition. Actually, it's just suddenly about what you're giving them and what they're going to give back to you. So that makes it sound like it's a lot. It's almost not even conscious that I would think of all that stuff before I went on stage. But I know after 10 years now, that's kind of where I am. So
no, Kate, that very confrontation you're talking about, for want of a better word, is something that every creative person feels. That fear element is something that isn't spoken about a lot in the world, because everyone just imagines everyone just sees the end product and they think, oh, it's all easy for us, and we're all just, you know, it's just all been ordained from on high or something. But the like I say, is that fear. And I think the two lessons that I think I'm picking up from what you're saying, the something I've experienced myself, is that one element is, when you do overcome it, you've always got to remember that you think, okay, like you said, it's the next time you do your next show, you think, okay, I've been there, done that, and take it to yourself, because creative people can be very much self-destroying, and they can be like, like you say, we get tied up in nuts and fear. And I think the other element is, and I think this is, again, it's something I think on the flip side of it is, but I think fear is a tool that is very relevant for creative people. I think there's almost an element of, like I said, it's a duality to what I was just saying before, but there's this element of, of course you can't be fearful, you've got to be confident at all times and just slap on that smile and march through life. And I think fear is a very good tool. I think it's something you can pick up on, and like you said, if you weren't fearful, you wouldn't have maybe got to where you were right now, because if you walked onto that stage, I mean, Mrs. Confident, maybe it wouldn't have got the experience to where you are right now.
No, I think it's a good point, because like it's about being like, it's that edge of like the fear as an energy, and then you actually become really vulnerable, which is a really nice thing. Like whether you're painting or singing or dancing, there's just that part of you that you actually have to just give up. So like it's this practical element where we're really conscious of what we're doing and what we're sharing and technique and blah blah blah, and then there's just that sort of extra level of and if once you harness that, like you harness an energy, I always think of it that way, then you're already ahead of the sort of, but I mean, and that does take practice, because I actually think about, and you've probably been the same, I mean, maybe you're the same when you're sharing artwork or whatever, I think about early days when I was first starting to do open mics with the guitar, and I didn't learn the guitar until I was about 25. I think some of that was some of the most terrifying experiences that I ever had, in just a noisy pub and everything, and I'd be like shaking, and I just couldn't overcome it at all. Like it just felt, because I came from sort of more musical theatre and drama, so it was just such a surreal experience to have people like it's not like an audience in a theatre where they should be quiet, but it's much more of an engaging And now I love it, like, and I love listening rooms. It's probably my preferred way to perform. But back then, I couldn't manage it. And I think if you can't manage it, then the fear becomes you rather than you using it as like a sort of energy, and you sort of channel it. Really, it's quite cool.
Yeah, and I think from the other side, and again, this is experience, you know, given experience what it's like to be an audience member, especially like you're saying in the smaller. You know, you're not going to an arena. I'm not paying out, you know, 70 quid to go and watch my favourite band. When I'm going to like that experience you just mentioned, I mean, I imagine it'd be exactly the same when you've been there. But you're always willing. You're always wanting the person who's up there on stage, and that's that, like you said, that fear that you think actually no, most of the audience here are willing you to do well. They want you to do well, and then you realise that it's just a psychological fear element that actually doesn't need to exist.
I mean, who sits at a gig or at an event and just sits there? I mean, unless it's political, I don't know, nightmare, but no one says, God, I really hope they mess this up, because it's just, that would just be horrendous, like, for everyone involved. And, you know, never at a gig do you ever feel that way, like, ever, I think, hopefully. I mean, it's probably the odd nasty person, but ultimately, yeah, like, yeah, you're right, everyone's for you. It's like, you know, I'm for these people on stage right now. And even if someone's stumbling a bit, the best thing you can do is not sort of cringe for them and be like critical. It's like, just tell them it's fine. You know, like, I forgot my words at one of the gigs I did in June. I completely blanked. It was after there was I can't remember if it was there was one of the terrorist attacks. I can't remember, Manchester. And so I had a gig the day after, or the day, or whenever it happened. It was the day after, and I couldn't get around not talking about it. It was just too surreal that everyone had come out to see a gig, and we were all sitting there. It was all over the news. It was looping, and I waited the whole set, and I said, I just need to say thanks for coming out, because I know this has been a really difficult time. And I talked a little bit about what happened, and I tried to sing Be Still, Gentle, Kind, and I just couldn't. Like, it wasn't even that I was overwhelmed with emotion, it's just that my brain had gone to a different place, and I couldn't remember the lyrics. And not a single person in that room had a sort of, oh, this is awful, and why did I come? It was the complete opposite. They were like, you know, clapping and saying, forget it, move on. It was just really supportive. And that, I mean, that's like, for a performer, you never want to just bail on one of your songs, but I couldn't find the words. And afterwards I thought I could be really negative about that experience, but I felt really warm about how everyone had responded, if that makes sense. And I was like, actually, that was a really human thing, an exchange of you know, feelings, and just like being really conscious of what, you know, had happened in the wider scheme of things. So yeah, you just have to sort of put yourself out there, don't you?
Yeah, and it was something you spoke upon earlier on when you said it's about that living in the moment thing, and people, they want that moment, because it's the same reflection when I'm in you know, I've been in an audience, and it's that idea that if you, like you said, you want to live in that moment, and you don't want somebody on stage who's, for want of a better word, who's taking life too seriously. We're in this moment, and that's particularly with musicians. I mean, it's one of the reflections I had a bit of experience in both, but particularly, it's something as an artist, I feel it doesn't matter how many times even if I go out in public and paint, there's not the same emotion, feelings, you know, whatever it is inside you that you get from a musician. There's something about, like, particularly this kind of music you're doing and the style of breaking it right down. There's that whole, like you say, you can really make a moment. You can make that moment, and that is, it's a series of moments is what life is. I mean, that's, I've been quite zen, but that's, we just live in one moment, don't we, really?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a good way of describing it.
On that one as well, and I think it's on the same sort of thing you mentioned earlier on about just fear and stuff, and I know, just reading a bit of your bio, you mentioned about yoga. Now, has that been something you consciously did after the event to deal with the fear and stuff like that? And secondly, does it actually, because I think, I mean, the amount of times I tell the people, hey, yoga should be a daily routine in everybody's life, because I think it says exactly what you says. It makes you not realize, stop taking yourself so seriously, and it makes you very self-aware. So I think to get you through those events, like the fear, because you think actually I self-meditated, I know where I am, and so just tell me your experience of yoga. Was that something, like I say, that intersected with your music, or were you doing that beforehand, or?
Yeah, so I mean, the reason I started Ashtanga is I didn't know anything really about yoga, and I obviously was already formed. It was after university. What happened was my mother actually died, and after about a year and a half of kind of managing my way through it, the situation, I just had a full-on breakdown. Which is two things that came good of that were that I decided to quit my job, and I ended up applying to go back into college and study voice. And the second thing was I had a reaction to obviously I was struggling so much, they'd put me on antidepressants, which was fine because it was done, you know, supportively, but I had an allergic reaction to them and I couldn't take them. And then I was like, I don't want to even try another one because it was such a horrible situation. And so I had such an amazing therapist and grief counselor at the time, and he was really in touch with my doctor, and together they'd found there was a yoga school really near where I was living at the time, and they did Ashtanga, and it was actually combined doctor and therapist that said, why don't you try something like that, because it's really going to help with the anxiety. And I was like, sure, why not? I mean, it literally couldn't be any worse. Right now, I'm allergic to everything. I'm sort of in the throes of grief. And so I went in, and I'll always remember my first lesson because I was so nervous. Like I just had never been in a room with, you know, yoga people. And so I went in, everyone lined up, and I hadn't really been aware of anything. And suddenly the teacher, and it's a guy who's from Manchester, actually, he's called Mike Nevitt, and a really amazing teacher. He was walking in, and he was so nice, but I was intimidated, obviously. And he pointed at my feet, and I was like, oh no, I'm doing it wrong, like right there. He pointed at my feet, and he went, socks off. Everyone in the room with socks on, and I was like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. I took the socks off, and I was like shaking, and he just sort of smiled at me, and he was like, it's fine. He was just sort of kind of breaking ice. And then after that day, I just had such a transformational kind of experience. It really, like, immediately took me out of my head, because Ashtanga is you move on the breath. So even from the beginning, like when you're just learning, so you're doing sun salutations, everything's got to move on the breath. So you learn about the Ujjayi breath, and it was so difficult. And I mean, like, I'd lost all my strength. You know, 4 years at university. It's not like I was up to much exercise, and so you know, it was like, wow, I haven't put my body through anything like this, and I found it euphoric, basically, and so it was just complete serendipity in that sense. It wasn't nowadays I know people go searching for yoga and everything, which is great, but back then it was just, I just need something because I'm cracking up type thing. So, and that was when I was 22, so I'm a lot older than that now. But it's about 10 years I've been practicing, just a little bit more than that. So on and off, I definitely have had times where I've fallen out of the practice, like I've been frustrated. And to bring it back to the music, I see such a parallel. Like, I really learned a lot, and I still go to my practice now when I'm challenged in a physical, like an asana, like a posture, and how you have to be patient with it, and you have to break it down, and you have to listen to your body and trust your teacher. All of these things can be said if you're attempting to self-release music or write songs and share it with people. All these things that you are frustrated with or scared by, you can apply this philosophy, basically. So the two actually, again, it just wasn't planned, but the two actually fell completely in place and really definitely support each other now. Even today, I had a coaching session with a vocal coach who I've just been working with. And so we were talking about breathing, and I'd sort of referenced the Ujjayi breath again. She was like, that's it. And it's all from yoga. So you know, I know people write it off as very new age and, oh, it's just like exercise now and all this stuff. But my experience, I actually came from and we've talked about trauma, but that was really how I got into it. And then I also found that it really sort of helped me cultivate a sort of songwriting practice and performance, you know, practice, and I guess I kind of lucked out with that. It wasn't planned. Nothing ever is with me, but I'm really good at landing on my feet.
Well, I think it's always made me laugh a bit, Kate, when people said, and I hear the same thing, and I've heard it for a long time. People go, like you said, you mentioned yoga, and they go, it's new age. You think, wait a minute, this is some of the oldest practices that's been on this, and plus, you talk to some Hindu, you talk to some Jets come back way back, but I think it's always the connection. And to me personally, I'm always fascinated that. It's kind of like I'll give you an analogy. As an artist, I feel like you have to learn the skills of having to draw with, a pencil, and then move up, and paint, and just know the basics of your skill. As a musician, you think, okay, you have to learn the beat of an instrument and learning it. But I think as part of almost, it should be as much as learning an instrument, it should be yoga, because I think the two are intrinsically linked. I think there's something about how you can project your voice, your personality. I think there's something about the whole, like I said, open up your mind. I think it's something almost part of it should be a part of the tool of every musician. I think it should be everybody everywhere, but particularly as musicians, because it's so, again, to link back what I was saying, I mean, you go back to the old Hindu and stuff, it's all music. They were doing this, and it's all vocals, and it's very much a part of the musicians, I think, should be part of their toolkit.
I think so, because I think you can channel a lot of things. I think one of the coolest things about having a sort of physical yoga practice as well as a meditative one is when it lets you not be in your head. I mean, you have to be, because you have to know like what you're doing. You build this really bizarre awareness of your body and your breath. And then, I mean, obviously it's going to take me, like it should, but it will take me the rest of my life to try and connect it all. Like that's the goal. You just try and you try and you try, and it's just, I know that's the same meditation. Like you're not actually meant to be very good at it. It's not like, when people sort of sell mindfulness and read this and I've done this course, and it's like, yeah, great, that's very where we are now in society. However, as individuals, it's like you said, you're your own teacher. And one of the best things as a performer, exactly what you're saying about music, is to remove like your ego, like remove the brain, and not just in the sense that you're online boasting about yourself. I mean, you physically, the ego is what drives us forward. It's what makes us ambitious. Like I'm not against it, but you have to understand it. And like sometimes just it's getting in the way sometimes of how you're writing or how you're singing or how you're projecting, all of these things. And actually yoga, both physical and philosophical, you're right. It's like, it's just a whole bag of tools that are really helpful, and it's free. Like you don't need, you actually don't need to sign up to all these ridiculous courses, and people like social media sort of, just all the marketing around it now drives me mad, because like you really don't need that. You could do it with just a book and then drop in and see a teacher whenever you can, and that's yoga.
Yeah, and I think the other element you're tapping into, and I think from sort of speaking on quite a real level here, I've always thought that people that are going to like ourselves who are creative, and if we're gonna step out of the rabbit normal, the everyday 9 to 5, and we're taking a choice to be creative, I feel we have to give it every part of our body and our sinew and everything. And I think that's what I'm saying, not to overlook tools that are there, and you see it, I see it with so many creative people where they're just getting themselves into knots, and they get stressed and they get anxious, and then they worry about exactly. And you just think, look, if you just sat down and don't call it yoga, let's not call it meditation, just sit down and listen to your breath, just understand that where you are on this planet right now, or where your soul and and just center yourself, for want of a better word. And like you said, it's free. And I think it's, like I said, I think if creative people are going to do that, we have to give the best of ourselves, and not. And I don't know. I don't know. At times I get quite frustrated, and I get quite passionate with artists and creative people, and saying, look, you've got to give more of yourself. You can't just, that ego element of just allowing yourself to go, and it's flying off these flights of fancy that, end of the day, all that's left behind is just another time wasted, another day wasted. You think, oh man, I wasted 6 months of my life being, you know, obsessed by my ego and fear.
Exactly. It's that that quote, and I've always blank on people's names when I'm supposed to remember them, but the book is Big Magic. I can't remember her name. She's a writer, obviously. And and it really stuck with me. I read it a few years ago, and she said, never expect your art to provide for you. You provide for your art. Get out there and make that commitment. Like, you're the one that's got to work. So when people, it drives me mad when they're like, oh, I'm just not inspired. I need a muse. I mean, it just doesn't work like that. Like, you're not supposed to only be able to do it because you have something. If you do, then that's great. But there's also the discipline. There's the write your morning page of nonsense or whatever, you know, greet the day and, you know, actually be an artist. Like, this whole let it come to you isn't going to work. And again, to flip back to yoga, that's actually in essence what they teach you. Like, they say, just roll out your mat. Like, you're supposed to just do it I mean, it's obviously you can't always do it 6 days a week, but I mean, great if you can. But the point is, you have to have that commitment. And if you do, that's when you cultivate that kind of real, like, strength in your practice. And it's the same as an artist, basically. And that's what I mean. The two are just so aligned. Like, and it's obviously, you know, what you were saying as well, you've noticed it. It's just, it's sort of to be disciplined about your art as well as anything else, you know?
So when can you have a moment you can remember sort of music coming into your life? But I mention this because, again, in your bio you talk about you obviously a love of theatre and stuff like this, and I'm always fascinated to how music crept into your life, because I know some people, you know, you meet them, they're like, oh yeah, when I was 4 years old I was playing the piano, and I'm like, okay, fair enough. And there's people like that, and like you said, that you picked up at 25. So did you know, up to, you know, like you say, when you mentioned you're late, you know, mid-20s when you're picking up the instrument first, did it play any role in your life at all? I mean, music at all?
Yeah, no, I did, and I did play instruments. I just didn't play the guitar. So I sang when I was pretty young, I think, and sort of 9, 10ish. Like, even by the time I was in school in Scotland, I was sort of getting involved more in lambda and drama and musical theatre. And I was aware that I could sing. My mother had an amazing voice, so she would sing to us, and she sang to us from birth. And we would, you know, sing along with her a little bit. But I mean, I was quite sort of timid and quite shy, so I felt like I could sing, and my memories are from being young. And I would sing along to tapes, and we had a very musical house. And I would sing along, I don't know why, but specifically to musical theatre. So, like, one of the first shows I ever saw was Les Miserables, or Les Miserables. And I immediately wanted to play young Cosette, and I knew like I could sing like her. So I think that was the connection, like, vocally. And then by then I sort of could play a bit of piano, and I could do a lot of top line stuff. And then I also did play the clarinet. So music was really in my life. But quite specific to drama or recitals, or our school was actually a school of the Sacred Heart. So we had a chapel, so I would sing pretty much every Sunday the responsorial psalm. Oh, they'd be so ashamed of me now. You know, because back then, that was like some of my really early performing like opportunities were just up on that balcony letting rip. I mean, probably wasn't supposed to see it that way, but that's how I saw it. Like, I was actually getting to sing with other people, so, and I just kind of enjoyed it. So yeah, so that, I mean, I did, and then obviously my degree was actually in drama as well with English, but I didn't do any singing throughout that sort of period. But what happened was, but after my mum had died and then I went back into college, I knew that I wanted to do more songwriting. So that was really the shift. Like, as a child, there was a lot of singing and a lot of music and performing and amateur dramatics and stuff like that. But it wasn't really until I was about 25 when I went back to Edinburgh College. And I thought, oh, I better learn a bit of the guitar, because then I can take it out to open mics and stuff. Whereas before, you were always in a company or you were being accompanied, and that just didn't seem very accessible. So that's really how I kind of fell into and by then I was like completely obsessed with people like Joni Mitchell. And you know, I wanted to sing like that, which was, you know, it is everyone's dream.
Yeah.
So, but then there was quite a nice sort of shift between the type of voice I have, and I think a lot of the practice and the sort of technique that I learned as a kid has filtered into my sound now. Like, I'm not particularly commercial. I'm very melodic, and it's quite a clean tone, I think, the way I sound. So I think there's hints of my background in there.
So do you have any memories of the first steps you did into actually writing a piece of, as in, you know, the lyrics and stuff? Because that's, I mean, if you're coming from a musical angle, I mean, a lot of people come to it from where they're almost poets and then they get a band around them to write the tune, you know, the music around them. But you're coming from a musical angle, so can you remember your first steps into actually writing lyrics down and what that was like?
It was after uni. I mean, I pretty much always journaled, so that was fine, and had obviously done a lot of writing and editing at university. Afterwards, I did. It was kind of more poetry, but as soon as I got a guitar, I just combined the two really quickly. Like, that's kind of how I remember it happening. But, you know, because I'm not a strong guitarist at all, but what actually has been interesting is that when I started to write, and then I would write songs for the guitar, I would completely write with a vocal melody. So a lot of my songs are not in a traditional, certainly not in 4/4. And when I took them to other people like Graham, who plays guitar, and Tilo piano, to them it was like the changes were always in quite strange places, and to them they were like, that's actually quite interesting. And I was doing all that without, again, absolutely no planning of that whatsoever. I just happened to be that way. So it's been quite good that I did that. But in terms of, that's my memory as well, like marrying the two, writing very quickly for the guitar, not being a strong guitarist, and so having to kind of really come up with a melody with my voice, and just ending up, you know, in this in this place. Oh God.
Well, it's like you said before, it's the moment, it's where life has led you to. So, you know, and again, people can go away. We'll put links and stuff like that. So you put the EP out, and you sort of did mention earlier on that, you know, you mentioned to me that you weren't planning to do gigs and you got some coming out. So just generally, I mean, what's the sort of plans for the next sort of, I mean, I know, hey, I think it's really funny. We spent the last 20 minutes talking about yoga and living in the moment. I'm about to ask you, what's going to be the next 6 months going to be unfolded? But just generally, what's your sort of plans moving forward?
So at the minute, I have been on a bit of a hiatus, obviously, because I broke my ankle, and then 5 weeks later, I scalded the same leg. So I'm still injured technically, and although I've been hospital every week, like backwards and forwards, but I'm not due back till the end of this month because it's getting better, so that's quite good news. But it meant that I didn't commit to any touring, or I mean, I just didn't know. So when I had chatted to people, they were trying to ask me for dates, and eventually I had to say, look, I don't actually think I'm going to be fit enough. So I've decided we do, every year I do a Christmas song, and I'm doing that with a friend actually who decided to learn the piano this year. So he's learned a little Christmas thing. So we're going to involve him, so that'll be really nice. And then I still have my pledge, because when I released the single this year, I did it through Pledge Music. So I have 3 songs to record for people who pledged that I would cover a song. So I'm going to do all that, tie that up by the end of by January. And then I just had a chat with a venue here in Edinburgh, and I'm going to do my first official gig back in February.
Nice.
With piano and some guitar, and it'll be like a 2-set thing. It will be a sort of evening with, and it's just local in Leith. And I'm going to mix it up actually. So I'm going to do original stuff, but I'm also going to maybe throw in some of my theatre stuff, which I've never done before. So we'll just see how that goes. But I might cover a few West End or Broadway numbers, which we'll see if people enjoy it or not. So yeah, so that's kind of it. It's just been a really quiet sort of 6 months, just because I've not really been fit enough at all. And then next year, the plan is to actually work on an album. That's I was hoping to do that at the end of this year, but I'm going to just wait until, the new year. It's a bit late now to kind of get my head around stuff. So, and I'm going to do more electronic stuff to it. So it'll be like folk, electronic.
Okay.
It's going to be really dark. And we're basing it on the original translation of Grimm's fairy tales. So I've got like this huge book, and they are really, really like bleak. They're amazing, but they're really dark. I mean, they're not the sort of Disney fairy tale version that everyone. And I know there's been so many translations. Like I think there was 11 or 12 versions of the book over the years, and this is like their very early one. So, it's gonna be quite interesting, I think. See how we get on.
Well, I find it fascinating, because you mentioned the wolf, and there you go, the Grimm brothers, and completely wolf. I mean, and I think it's one of the things that is fascinating because, like you said, with the Disneyfication of everything, and they've made everything, kind of humanized all animals. But it's like the Grimm. When the Grimm they wrote those tales. I mean, I don't know how many people are aware of this, but there was this actual factual evidence of wolves running around Paris killing people, and it's that fear that like you say, that we've almost become so. And I think it's something else you just tied in there, what you said, Kate. And I think it's. I'm always sort of quite aware to say this, but we're so privileged that we can sit there. We've got all our functions. We can sit there, and like you say, when you go through experiences, you're like, I can't wait till the day I'm out of this bed and I can actually go out and do that. And it's almost like on a heightened level to where society's got right now. And it's kind of like just a few years, 100 years ago, there was wolves running around doing that, and now we've got people complaining about microaggressions, and you're like, chill out, people.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. I know. Well, that one of the reasons I wanted to go back is everything's very sort of cleaned up, and it's quite everything's so shiny, and I mean, Tilo's from Germany, so we are over there quite a lot. And when I wrote the EP Wolf, we were in the Schwarzwald, and it was just back to that kind of mountain, eerie, rootsy, high kind of energy, like surrounded in snow. It just sounds amazing, and it makes you feel like really you're very aware of your space and your surroundings. And it was really that gave me the impetus. I was like, I'm going to go and find this early book, because I think the tone of it and the bleakness and the message, and like you said, like historically, it just makes you kind of go back and look back and kind of be more aware of what was before compared to where we are now. And clearly I'm just becoming old and cantankerous, and I hate social media, and you don't know how lucky you are. I'm kind of getting to that phase of my life now. So I'm going to write a whole album about it.
Well, it must be fascinating as well. You just mentioned that. It'll be interesting to see what a German reflection on Grimm tales, because we obviously get really bad translations. That'd be a fascinating insight.
Yeah, I think so. And like obviously there's so much there anyway. So you can actually go and just kind of look at a lot of the kind of documents and just sort of suss it out. But yeah, it'll be quite interesting, because even before, I've had conversations about the tale. I think it was Briar Rose and Sleeping Beauty, and my understanding of it was completely different from the German family I was sat with. They were like, no, that's not the one it was based on. And I was like, oh, you've just destroyed my entire childhood. Hey, that's fine. So I think there will be, and that's why I want to take time next year as well, like to actually write it, not just kind of rush out an EP or an album, because it's actually quite easy to do that now. Once you've been doing that, you realize you can get stuck in that whole. I think this will be really challenging, which is pretty much why I'm doing it, because I think it'll kind of snap me out of my complacency, especially after a year of being fairly on the sofa with breaks and burns.
Well, I'm sure, and the subject of what you're doing, and it's something I fly a lot, and I say that, you know, just for general for the artist, but that would be something if you open that up to the art world and said, look, I'm going to be doing this EP or an album around the Grimtailed and do some do some art and illustration around it. I think a lot of artists would really love this stuff, and I think it's when you're saying that, I'm just immediately thinking, wow, yeah, it would.
Yeah.
But I say this because it goes back to what you said before. I think we live in a time and an age now where, like you said, you know, with this whole social media and everything's become separated. I think all album covers are just these shiny, either computer generated and photo generated. And I think the idea, like you just said, of having, which is ironically about the Grimtails, it was you get an artist would write draw something, an author would write something, and they would inspire each other, and then you'd have a body of work together. But it's kind of music and the arts have been separated, and I think you coming to the table and saying, "Hey, I've got this is what my thing." It's only if you open that up to artists, I'm sure. Many artists.
I think it sort of lends itself to be really collaborative, because like you could even do like photography around it. You could do costume around it. So my plan as well, this is it now. I'm just going to tell the world what my plan is. Get it out, but then afterwards I could actually work on bits of theatre, because one of my other dreams is to have something at the Fringe, and it's like there's just a lot you could do, and I think I really want to do something like that now, rather than just keep sort of repeatedly sort of releasing songs. And I love doing all that, but I think at some point you do have to kind of open yourself up a bit more to other people and collaborate, and just like be a bit, you know, just be more challenged, I think. Everything's very anesthetized, if I had to say that, like online, and record something, upload it, share it. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's a guy, Steve Wilson, Tilo's like he's amazing. I don't know if you've heard of him. Sort of prog. I'll send you a link. He always now, he doesn't just release a CD, like it's this massive kind of beautiful piece of art that comes with it, and the inserts and just the time taken. And he knows as well, like his fans would much rather invest in that than they would just to receive you get the download link with it anyway. It's like that just is a part of it, and people stream it anyway. So you might as well try and build something a bit more, like touchy-feely and interesting, and so that's the plan.
No, it goes back again to so kind of like a theme of this conversation. It's, you know, like you said, very beginning, it's like living in the moment. And I've often thought this, Kate. I've often thought why people who do small little events, particularly when they're doing kind of music you're doing, where it's not just boom, 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 dance music or whatever, but particularly because it's kind of instrumental and you're playing with vocals and the instrument. Like I say, the element of theatre, putting it into a little pub, you know, just someone, and you know what it's like. You've done theatre more than me. You don't need to have the whole lighting, but I did some collaborations. I did the artwork for a band called Sin Demons, amongst others, and we did the same thing where they played a small little venue down in Richmond, Yorkshire, and they had just someone walk on with you know, like a cloaked up, and the whole thing. Even, you know, I even hear stories. People even contact me like, "Do you remember that time 3 years ago we saw?" And like you said, that element of theatre that takes them out of the ordinary, which is what I would say that people are going out for. If you're getting off your settee or your sofa and you're not watching X Factor and you're going out to a venue, you want that memory. And what heightens and, you know, takes a memory from just that was a nice night. Well, I went and saw a really nice bit of music. Well, those little extra things, like I say, you know, just some sort of element of a wolf coming in, or, you know, like some grim anything. Like you say, bring the theatre, which ironically used to be the thing that music used to be about. No. It used to be the thing. You used to go along, pay your £5, and watch your band, and they would give you, like, you know, the best of what they could, a smoke with Sheila, like, you know, and all that just seems to have gone. And I think and they've always had this, like you said, you know more than me, music and theatre and the, you know, putting the visual and sound together is as old as the trees themselves.
I know, and we don't see enough of it. It's totally underfunded as well. But this is the kind of thing I would try to raise funding for, because it needs it, you know. And if you kind of put a good proposal together, and like you said, you reach out to other artists as well, and it becomes really collaborative, you know, it should be invested in, because as long as you know, are you know, enthusiastic and responsible about it, it would be good for Scotland, because, you know, it would be good for Germany, it would be good for the artist, it would be good for the singer. You could even, I did some stuff with the schools, East Lothian Council, and it's called Build a Band. You could even take elements and make it into a workshop and take it into schools, like, you know, like really get to the meat and the bones of actually what a kind of piece of art can be about. It's not just about sounding nice and looking nice on YouTube. Don't get me wrong, we all have that, but I don't know, like, I need more now.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just at that point where, yeah, it's time to kind of just be a bit more in depth, I think.
Well, I think it's fascinating you speak upon that, because I know people listen to me week in, week out are sick of me saying it, but I just think that, you know, like I say, honestly, if we want to do anything in this world, we've got to connect creative people. But connecting creative people, as I keep saying, it's like herding cats, and it's just and do you know what I mean? And I think it's hilarious, because I've gone through the whole of my life seeing from I remember the days before, and I sound like a right old man. I remember the days before the internet, and I remember the days when you had to go down the road to get your phone box. And I've seen when we had no connection to now we've got all this connection, but there's no, like I said, and all that time, I've never seen the artists really connect with each other. I still see this, they kind of, like I say, they want to scatter them. And it's great. I think it's great that, that creative people are individualistic. I don't want them to be some sort of collective, but it's something like I say, it's one of the drives I think behind what I'm trying to do, Kate, with what we're trying to build a platform. It's just having somewhere where creative people can go, okay, we're just going to be meeting there for that. And there's no kind of like, okay, I've got to go and face an audience, or I've got to face this, or, you know, I think if we could just do that. And I don't know how you feel about this, but only you meet many creative people. I've often thought, if we could just connect, there's 10% of the creative people that I meet and you meet, we could shift this paradigm so much quickly, but we just scatter.
I know. I think there's a lot of apathy as well. That's the problem. Like, just people tend to get really overwhelmed as well, and so especially it's not, and so you get really lost in your own little bubble. But then there's all the other stuff that's going on, and politics, and, you know, just like world events, or, you know, natural disasters. Everyone starts to kind of, you know, become really into themselves again. And it's like you said, artists can be the worst because they're typically really sensitive to that. So it is a struggle sometimes. And then there's also the kind of people who are trying really, really hard at the minute. And I see it every day and hear it every day. People are trying really hard to succeed in terms of becoming, you know, well known and well established in a sort of, what's the word, like in marketing sense. Like, I mean, I'm not saying they're not artists. I'm just saying that it's easy to get lost in that, because you put so much into your work that suddenly all you want is for it to be shared and for everyone to see it. That is like everyone's energy goes there, rather than exactly what you've just described, which is, you know, how can we all work more together, more collaboratively? Can we do more for each other? Can we share more work for each other? It is tough, I think, now, like, the arts in general, like, A, underfunded, B, people having to self-release all the time or self-publish. You know, anyone can have an Instagram account, anyone can have, anyone can release music on Bandcamp. You know, it's like, you can get lost in it, and then and then it just builds that apathy and that, I just can't be bothered anymore, and I don't want to be part of it. It's quite difficult actually to navigate at times. I do find that, but one way for me to get around that is to set myself a big challenge like this one I'm hoping to do next year, because it's like we were saying earlier, if you're more disciplined and more, if you set yourself kind of big goals, but like small markers to get there, then you're kind of forcing yourself out of your little safe space bubble type thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's one of the things I've been contemplating quite a lot recently. Is getting out of echo chambers, which is so easy for us to all fall in. We quite easily love our little echo chambers. But I think the other thing as well, I've been really contemplating this just recently. Maybe one of the actual ways of humanly moving forward with this is we almost go back to the idea of, I don't know, almost like a family. We go, okay, look, I've made this connection with someone. Instead of just having a connection as we all do, we all meet each other. And then, like you said, like you just said, we all just scatter and we don't. maybe we've got to go, okay, maybe one of our disciplines we've got to do is just keep reaching out to these people, actually make some, and actually put the effort in. Because I mean, you're rightly saying here, Kate, and let's be real about this. You know, you said about the funding and stuff. Okay, no one's going to come to our rescue. Let's just be real about this. They don't know, nobody. And I mean, I've lived long enough on this planet to know no one's going to come to our rescue. There's no shining knights out there. We've got to do it all ourselves. And if we have got to do it ourselves, then we've got to maybe work out that instead of us being too, like you said, very much we want to hide, keep ourselves. Maybe we've got to be like family and hold, like we were when we were kids, and go, look, you're my best friend. I'm not gonna, that's the point. I'm not all this best friend. Now we're not friends, and we're, no, we've got to be a bit more, because, as you say, I mean, I think I'm really quite real on this, because again, this year, I've seen Tom Petty die, I've seen friends of mine die, and I think this is all. All this isn't needed. If a lot of this could be helped, because, as you said, we are very generally sensitive, open people, but for that we need, which makes us wary of trust. So when we do open ourselves up to someone who purports they're from the same position and then does exactly the same what the world does, it perpetuates and becomes a spiral. So I think it's something that we, as the creative people, instead of just blaming everybody else and saying, well, it's their fault, we've got to go, what can we do? How can we step up? What are we doing to help to people?
Yeah, no, you're right. And if we could all just sort of align our values like that, I do. And it starts with us. It starts with us as individuals, doesn't it? So like we also have to kind of tune in and make sure that that's what we're doing. And we'll have bad days, but that's fine. Then the next day you just do better. I guess that's kind of how to see it. But I actually really appreciated like you reaching out and just all the sort of Twitter chat and sort of you encouraging this conversation. And I really appreciate it. I am open to it. And I find this much more valuable and more interesting, as an artist, as just a human, than if I'm spending money on PR or reaching out to people and saying, review this, review that. Do you know what I mean? There is something in that kind of organic, connection, little hugs of people supporting each other. And it is crazy because it happens through something like Twitter. So it's not to discount all of the social media and the platforms that we use, but you're right, it's the follow-up.
Yeah.
Kind of maintaining the connections and just sort of being more supportive outwardly to everyone that you come across, like just remember that. I think it's really important what you said. It's so easy that people say, when people ask me for things, or they say, can I get this contact or this gig, or how did you get that? I'm always like, sure, here, whatever, here's the information. And they'll never say that. They'll be the one, a lot of them will be the least likely to share my work, because they're so wrapped up in they're on that trajectory where they're like, I need, because they're just trying really hard to succeed. So I don't fault their intention. Like, I know what they're doing, I see it, and I'm like, I want people to succeed, but it can be quite jarring, can't it? Again, so sensitive, but you do sometimes feel like it's the after bit, it's the afterwards that people sometimes have that disconnect. So I do try in my own little bit, in my own bubble.
No, yeah, I mean, I think the element I'm sort of really sort of trying to say out to, and I think it's maybe the other side to this element is like you were just pointing out. I mean, there's so many people that almost the drive at the moment is just to, like you say, get known, get popular. And I think one of the things that people forget is, like, people can glean far more from a human being in a conversation like this than they can in PR, as you're absolutely right. And then secondly as well is that sometimes, and this is maybe my role in this part of this conversation, I have to say, look, you're inspiring people that you're never going to meet. That's the point. You might be inspiring some little person in, I don't know, Finland or something, and you're never going to meet that person, and it's not going to lead to a gig or to a CD sale or anything like that. But that, and do you know how I know that's true? Because I know that's what I get reflected to me. That's why I like to reach out to people like to you. And equally, I know that myself. I know how many times I've gone through tough times in my life, and it's been a song that's dragged me through it. And I'm never going to get to meet the person that wrote that. I'm never going to go and put my arms around and say, "Oh man, you got me through the worst time of your life." That's the beauty of what we do this for. It's not about the fame or the money or anything. It's about that human connection, as you rightly said, and that is something that's forgotten in this world where it's all about numbers and, like you said, all the ego side of it. A lot of it is just the You create something, it inspires somebody, and we all know that because it inspires us, and that's what it should be about. It should be everything should inspire us. I'm saying I listen to your music, it inspires a piece of creation in me. That's what it's about. That's to me, that is what life is.
Yeah. I am so grateful for those pictures as well, because they're amazing. I showed them to everyone. I'm like, look. They're beautiful though. I was like, oh man, that makes me so happy. It's a surprise. Like, that's just something that, like you said, that just happened. It wasn't me saying, can you do this if I give you this song? You know, there was no sort of planning behind it. It's just a moment, and much appreciated. So
no, and I say that, Kate, because that is, to me, it's one of the, you know, for all the things that we say earlier on this conversation, you know, the people that, you know, we may say unfortunately have to work the 9 to 5 life. The one the thing they look at us people around us crazy, go, oh, you're so lucky, you know, do whatever you like. But that's exactly it. The one great thing we've got as creative people, the people in the suits, they don't understand, is that we can get inspired and we can do these things and live in the moment. And so, and that's what I'm saying. And it's almost hard for people to comprehend that, like you say, there's no Faustian, you know, pact between me and you. There wasn't sort of like dark, you know, like you said, you're asking me, and we're both trying to do it to climb my way up the ladder. No, it's the element again that's been lost in this world. There's just a joy in listening to something and creating something, or the other way around. You'll see something, a piece of art, and it may inspire a song inside you, or you'll watch this is what it's about, because and let's be real about this. You know, we're a long time dead, and you might as well soak it all up and enjoy it as much as possible without, like you said, being caught up in the ego and stuff, because it was just, that's what I love about life. I love the fact I came across this track, it inspires something, bang, out comes something. That's, to me, is a very element of life itself, and I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think more people need to get, ironically, over their ego and enjoy life more, because if they'd have to turn around and go, oh, you're some special artist. No, you're not. Everybody could do this. We were doing it when we were kids. We were all scribbled away and we all banged on drums and stuff. And the trouble is, like I said before, we get to adults and we were like, no, I must take life seriously now. And that's what I'm saying. That to me is the very element and beauty of creating and being, you know, a creative person. We can all inspire each other. Well, look, Kate, we've flown through this hour, and I did say I wanted to. That's what I'm saying. We could do this for hours. That's what I'm saying. I did say, I wanted to finish with "Be Still, Gentle and Kind," and I know you've sort of touched upon this, you know, recently in this conversation, but maybe sort of give us a bit of a background of, you know, about maybe sort of the theme behind that track. But while I am queuing up, I want to say a couple of things. Thank you for coming on, giving me your time.
Thank you for having me.
Let's make this the first of many conversations, because I feel we've scratched upon the surface here, and I feel there's so many other parts that we can talk about. But like I say, thank you for giving me your time. I'll post out notes, and I've said to you in privately, but I look forward to the day you get to play in Guruk. There's a continental, there's a continental cafe down there, and that's going to be one of my lifetime dreams, to see you play there. So while I am queuing up, okay, and like I say, thank you very much for your time. And like I say, we're going to finish with "Be Still, Gentle and Kind."
Do you want me to say a bit about it?
Just tell us what you want to tell about the track while I'm queuing up.
Oh, so this song really was, again, it came from a really strange period of time. 2 years ago, I just lost my dad, and decided I was going to write something about how everything is kind of circular, and I wanted something positive to come out of kind of another traumatic experience, shall we say. And I just wrote this song with Tilo, and I've shared it with really a lot of people, and it's one of the songs that most people contact me about, because they hear it, someone's given it to them or said you should listen to this, and that really, I feel like that's an achievement. Like, forget the numbers, that it's just an achievement that people will respond in that way. So yeah. In the coolest day,
Every day the world creates a map